Okay, Josh, we're live.
Right.
Hey, wow, okay. Hi, Pat. Hi, Hayden. Johannes. Hi, Paul. Good to see you. Hayden says you are live and sounding awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Hang on, I better just turn the volume down on this, otherwise I can hear myself. There we go. Welcome, guys. What else we got? Pat, you're in there. Nice to meet you, Josh.
Good to see you, or at least to know you're there. If I can't see you.
Yeah, no, the guys are there. People are turning up. That's great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, no worries. How are you?
I'm good, man. All's well, okay. As well as can be.
Yeah.
In these times, I guess. But everything's okay.
Yeah, it's crazy times. Oh, hang on, Carmelo's here. Great. Hi, Carmelo. Hi, Mike. Good to see you. Everybody's joining in. Yeah, it has been odd. As we were just touching on, it's kind of they've come up with this sort of strange thing over here. I'm trying to avoid talking about. But it's a different kind of way of living now, and it's a different opportunity for people to look at things in different ways. And we were talking about this just with some of the guitar breaks guys the other night. This opportunity to look at doing things differently. Maybe that's the reason why we're doing these kind of things. So it's out of adversity comes opportunities to do great stuff.
It's one of the reasons I'm happy to live in California. It's a very progressive place. People care about other people and care about keeping people safe and doing things the right way. And everybody, man, it's been really actually pretty inspiring to see how it's unfolded here. Excuse me.
Yeah, but everybody's kind of working together and pulling together.
That's the way it seems to me. But then you'll get the rest of the country making fun of us because we're too liberal and all this and that.
Okay, let's have a look. What have we got here? Hi. Oh, RF Higgins. Hi, RF Higgins. Danny's turned up. Hi, Danny. Johannes says Josh needs to be a little bit louder.
Okay.
Can you turn yourself up a little tiny bit?
I can.
Hey, and Josh, stand by your beds because Matt Schofield's just joined.
Oh my God.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
How will I even play? How's that? Any better?
I'll find out in a minute. Dave Barlow's joined us. It sounds good to me. So, but like I say, we have to wait and see what the Facebook audience gives us back. Okay, so I think probably what we'll do is we'll start. I think that's the best thing to do. And my thing has always been, what's the journey? How have you gone? Where did you start? And how did you start? And what made you? Because so many people, certainly when I started playing guitar, I started playing guitar at a time when other people had tried and stopped. So what was the thing that made you start? And then what was the thing that helped you to not stop?
Well, the thing that made me start was just, random occurrence. I was 3 years old, so, I don't remember much of it. I was a little kid, but the day my sister was born, we're just a few days apart in birthday. So mine's October 7th and hers is October 11th. And my birthday got glossed over, I guess, a little bit because my mom was getting ready to have a baby and people were coming in from out of town and blah, blah, blah. So on the day my sister was born, my dad brought me home a guitar and a tennis racket, really for no reason. He stopped on the way home from the hospital and brought these two things. And I immediately went for the guitar. And when I was sick, I started taking lessons and I fell in love with it right away. What made me stick with it, I don't think that can be explained really. I mean, it was just an instant love affair. I've never felt that way for anything else. I mean, I love playing baseball. Those are my two favorite things ever growing up, were playing baseball and guitar. But I was just way better at guitar and it was much more natural to me. And I don't know, it was just a very instant thing.
But there is a kind of a sliding doors possibility that you could have been a pro tennis player.
Yeah, what's funny is, I mean, my dad and my mom both played tennis, but we weren't like tennis fanatics. we're baseball fanatics in my family. So the tennis racket was weird, because I played baseball all through my entire childhood. But yeah, I did play tennis, some when I was a kid. I enjoyed it. I enjoy all sports, but nothing clicked like this did.
Right. But to go back to the point of how did you not stop? How did you carry on? What was the thing that kind of, did you discover did you have a teacher? Did you have was there a style of music that really grabbed you, or how did it work?
Well, I had my first teacher was a young jazz guy from University of Miami, where I grew up in Florida. So he had just graduated from University of Miami. He was young, and he had put an ad in the newspaper for guitar, lessons. And my parents took me to him. So he was great at the beginning because he was very fundamentally sound. So he was giving me real fundamentals, and I linked into that quick. I got really into the books and reading the books and practicing every day. But then something happened. I think he moved away, and we had to find another teacher. And a music store opened literally within walking distance from my house. And this was completely random, obviously. But we went there, and the teacher there was more of like a working man's guitar player, guy in his 40s, classic rock and blues. And
Right.
so he started showing me like some of those things, hey, you can start playing right away. Here's some blues, this and that. And also my parents were, even though they don't play, they were big music lovers, and they have an enormous vinyl record collection. So we were listening to music in my house every minute. We'd have baseball on television, no sound, with music playing, some sort of record. So it'd be, everything from rock and roll, Allman Brothers and Rolling Stones and Beatles, and to B.B. King and Albert King, Otis Rush, to Miles Davis and Thelonious Monk, Coltrane, and then also a lot of like soul, Sam and Dave, Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, stuff like that. So I was lucky to have great music on all the time.
Okay, so is that what you were learning? Is that what you were playing at that time?
Yeah, it got me. That kind of music got me hooked fast when I heard BB and Albert King.
So
So I
what was kind of like the first, yeah, so what was that first thing that you really went, oh wow, this is a great, do you have a memory of like the first lick or the first riff or the first chord sequence, or?
well, the first memories that I remember, were like Beatles tunes and stuff like that from the first teacher. And then I remember the second teacher showing me like, honestly, the Clapton with Mayall record, the Blues Breakers record.
Yeah.
I remember him showing me like Freddie King, Hideaway, and things like that, playing the Stumble for me. And then BB King, I remember hearing live at the Regal. I remember hearing Albert King, Live Wire, Blues Power, which just changed my life when I heard that. But I don't remember like a specific riff that was first or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so what took you from that point where you're into the tunes that were going on in the house?
Yeah.
So what took you to that next point? Was there a particular influence? Was there a particular player or something that took you maybe out of what you were listening to in the house and took you to kind of where you started to go?
Well, at that time, what was popular, outside of my house was heavy metal. That was
Right.
the heavy metal days. So, I'm not going to lie. I definitely had, my Van Halen and my David Lee Roth with Steve Vai and Whitesnake. And, I had all those records and I listened to
Yeah.
all that stuff. I never really tried to get into playing it, and I'm not really sure why. It just didn't. I liked the music, but it didn't resonate with me when I would sit down at the guitar. I would always come back to playing blues and rock and roll and jazz was big for me, kind of starting to find my path. When I started to listen to Charlie Parker, it changed a lot of things for me, because it just made me hear this whole new world that still related to kind of everything that I loved. I kind of instantly heard it as when I heard Charlie Parker, and especially even before that, heard Charlie Christian with Benny Goodman and things like that. It instantly related to the blues that I was listening to, because the chord progressions were the same or similar. The scales being used were the same.
Yeah.
And then he was expanding with all this other information. So that was big. And then a lot of it was driven by really like my need to be better. I was really obsessed with this thing. I worked hard every day, and I started to get frustrated because kids my age weren't putting in the amount of time that I would. When I would meet other kids who played, they weren't working as hard as I was working. And then if they were, they weren't into the music that I was into. They were into metal, like we
Yeah.
said. That's what they were trying to learn to play, you know. So I struggled to find other people my age to jam with or play with, and that's what pushed me to kind of get out and try to play with adults. And once I started doing that, that's what pushed me at Lightspeed. Once I started playing with like way better musicians, I became obsessed with, I got to be able to hang. I didn't want to embarrass myself, and that made me start growing like much faster.
Okay. Okay. Right. Hang on a minute. Let's just do a quick. Luke Anthony's joined us. Hi, Luke. Antonella's there. Hello. Oh, Cesare's all the way from Italy. Cesare's with us.
All right.
Adam's watching. Oh, watch out. Stand by your beds. Talking of top guitar players, we've got a gentleman called Misha Nikolic who's joined us. Guy I worked with a few years back. He's an unbelievable guitar player.
Really?
Yeah, Emilio from Cornerstone Pedals is with us. My old chum Mike is here. Hans Meek from Germany, he's here. It's wow, there's loads of people out there. So, right, I want to take you on to the next bit. Now, I want to talk a little bit now. You know that I'm not the great technique guy, but what I want you to show us is, because you talk about the blues a lot, right? And you talk about the influences of jazz a lot. Can you just show us how you did that sort of jump, if you like, from the blues to starting to bring the jazz, or was it the other way around? It wasn't the other way around. It was kind of blues rock first, and then the jazz came in over the top of that. Am I right?
Yeah, it was definitely blues first. You know, when I started off, I was wanting to play nothing but, you know, it was B.B. King and Albert King, you know, and all pentatonic for life, you know. And I was lucky enough to hang around. I hung like back then. I could walk down to the music store and hang there in the afternoon, like after school. And you know, my parents would be at work, and I would hang out in this music store. And then in summer breaks, I hung at this other music store. And so, who works at music stores? Musicians, guitar players. So I'd just be picking their brains all day long. And when I started listening to jazz, I started asking these guys, you know, what is actually happening here? And there was a guy at one of the music stores I hung out with who was obsessed with Yes and Steve Howe, and he you know, he had a 175, and that was all he did was work on Yes tunes and Yes stuff. So he had knowledge, though, you know. He was a studied musician, and he started to kind of teach me, you know, the way to kind of navigate through some of the things I was trying to find out. And for me, it started with trying to connect chords together. And that's still the way that I mostly think about things at all times, is not so much what do I play over each chord. I kind of know at least one thing that works over every chord, and that's blues. You know, I can play this blues or that blues scale, and they work on these chords. Most of the time, I'm on autopilot. I'm really trying to think of how do I connect chords together. And it started for me by figuring out what I was doing when I played rhythm guitar. So that was these exact things right here. I was playing a shuffle. And I played that little half step move to get to the 4 chord, where I came down, you know, from above and landed on the 4 chord on a D7. And my friend said, well, you should spell out those chords. And I didn't know exactly what he meant. And what he meant was, you know, arpeggiate it's like a bridge almost. Go, or by spelling out those chords. So it's just doing, it's really, I'm spelling that out. But I started realizing, you know, I could do that all the time between every chords. So I started really paying attention to everything I was doing when I was playing rhythm guitar. So maybe, you know, maybe I play whatever. I started realizing all the differences that I would play when I would play rhythm guitar. Sometimes on the 4 chord, I would go from 4 to 4 minor, or sometimes on the 4 chord, I would go from 4 to diminished. And I started to spell those things out in my solos. And then I learned about 2-5-1s, and I started to put those in between chords. And it was a big light bulb for me, realizing that that was the biggest difference. Not what you played over every chord, but how you made every chord connect to the next chord. So I started to write out on a piece of paper chord changes. First, it would always be 12 bars, but I would write in all those chords, like I was Freddie Green. Whatever, I'd write in, and I'd write it different every time, but I'd normally write at least 2 chords per bar. And then I would just stare at it and try to make those chords. So I'd go. As crudely as that, I just look at those chords and, you know, change what I was playing, and that pushed me hard. And then I would start to do changes that weren't blues or just didn't relate at all, and try to find ways to put them together. And that was how the ball got rolling for me, for sure.
But that's it. It's interesting you say that, because that's a million miles away from the kind of thing that I was learning at that time. There was something about the music that grabbed you. There was something about that style that took you into that place. Because I mean, certainly for me at that time, it was all about the rock. It was all about Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, and going off into a bit of Bowie and that kind of stuff. But for you've got you followed a very particular path, a very particular stylistic path.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was most influenced by what I was listening to. So I was listening to a lot of blues, and then to Charlie Parker and to Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie, and a lot of bebop. I like bebop as my favorite, kind of jazz. And it was really easy for me to quickly draw parallels, and any little thing would get me hooked. So like what I just did there, I remember learning Charlie Parker Bloom Dido in B flat, which is just a blues, but it was like everything I learned was right in this head. So when he played that little, it was like, oh, wait a minute, he's playing a 2-5 to get to the 4 chord. And then he goes, which is, and it was like, it was these giant light bulbs of, I know exactly what that is. I just played that in my rhythm guitar, and I hear him doing it very clearly. He played a 2-5 to connect this chord, and then he went from 4 to 4 minor, and then he played a 2-5 to go back to the 1. And it was like bing, 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 like light bulbs, like crazy,
So is this one? Oh, hang on a second. Let's just do a quick shout out. We've got Gareth in from, oh, wow. Gareth is here from New Zealand. Hi, Gareth.
Ruling.
We've got Craig. He's in. Hi, Craig. William's watching. Stand by your beds. William Goodfellow's in the house. Nice. Simon's watching. Hi, Simon. And Carol's in from Kent in England. Hi, Carol. So this then takes me to a slightly different element that I want to ask you about, because there's a lot of talk, and maybe I'm about to get this wrong, but I'll try not to. There's a lot of talk of playing the changes.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is something that I hear a lot, but you brought a slightly different element to it, as far as I can tell anyway, from what I've been listening to, which is this concept of playing through the changes.
Well, to me, that's the difference between like a jazz guy and anybody else, because like say take Joe Satriani or Steve Vai or Eric Johnson. These guys play the changes brilliantly, right? Yeah. Like they play incredibly melodic. They spell out every chord. They play beautiful melodies. But do they connect the chords together in the same way that John Scofield does or Wes Montgomery did? No. So to me, that's the biggest difference. You can play the changes at all times. You should always be playing the changes. You should always be highlighting the chords that are happening. Like I said, but to me, I'm almost on autopilot thinking about those things. I know lots of things that work on a lot of chords. So if a major 7 chord happens, I know I can play, B flat major scale. I can play A pentatonic. I can play Lydian. I can play all sorts of shit that works on that chord. I already know that. I don't think about that at all. That just comes out. And then I just worry about where am I going so that I can make whatever naturally comes out connect to the things that's next. And I think that's the biggest difference between like a jazzer and a rock guy or something like that.
Right. It's a whole new world for me. I've managed to avoid jazz for as long as I possibly can. So it's a world that I've actually threatened a few years ago to go in and have a look at, but I'm just not sure. Perhaps I'm just not ready.
Well, what's so great about it is, even for guys who are it's a daunting task, and they're it's something they don't want to dive into. The work behind it, the tools, is universal to all music. It is not rocket science. The giant steps is the same as what I'm just showing you right now. It just keeps changing keys. You know what I mean? But it's 2-5-1 after 2-5-1 after 2-5-1. But the theory behind it is exactly the same as what I just did. Here. So these tools are universally applied to all music.
Okay, hold on, let's have a look who we got. Carol's in. Alexander, hey, from New Orleans. Hi, Alexander. Jerry's in. Thanasis from Greece is in. Thanasis, he sent it. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Thanasis. He's actually sent in a question. I'd like to ask it for you. He says, how do you incorporate new ideas from something you may have transcribed or something you came up with into your playing and then make it yours?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I have a strong opinion about that. I think the best way you can make any new idea part of your thing is, number one, if it's an option, get it on the bandstand immediately. So any new idea, even if you fall flat on your face and aren't quite sure exactly how to use this idea, immediately start doing so. But then the other half of that equation is figure out what it is about this idea or concept that got you excited in the first place, and make that the reason and the thing that you're learning, not just the lick. So when I sit down and hear somebody play something, and I use this lick as an example a lot because it's just easy for me to remember when I tell people, but Peter Bernstein is one of my favorite guitar players. And I remember hearing him play this lick in G that just went, which has just a bunch of flatted fifths. So I learned the lick, but learning the lick is just learning a lick and then you're done. It's more important, like, why did that hit me? And it was because he was leaning on that flatted fifth, the blue note. So it became, more, I always tried to listen to things with that kind of intent, listening for what is it about this that makes it stand out to me? And let me take that aspect. So maybe it may be something harmonically that you need to learn, but it may also be a technique or a tone or a feeling that it imparts. And I want to know why did it make me feel that way? And I'm going to learn that instead of just learning the lick, and that helps me really internalize something. And then it just comes out naturally because you've learned the reason behind the idea.
Okay, great. Let's have a look. Oh, Ian Sullivan's in from Madrid. Hi, Ian. How are you? We've got Jerry. Jerry said, oh, hang on. Jerry's come in with a question. Let's see if I can click on it. How on earth do you get up and jam on a song that you might not know too well? Is it the chord structure? Jerry asks.
Well, I mean, do I jam on a song that I don't know very well?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
How do you do it?
Oh, well, with these, I don't have perfect pitch, but I have very good relative pitch. So as long as I have a guitar in my hand and figure out what key the song is in, once I hear the progression go by one time, I will most likely have a good idea of what the changes are to this tune, at least intervallically. I'll know, okay, this is going 1, 4, 6 minor, 2 minor, 1 or something. I can hear that, pretty clearly. So I love to just sit down and try to play over a tune I've never heard before. And, cause that's something, it helps you stay sharp. This is a muscle. It's like, you gotta be practicing it all the time, especially improvisation, because number one, the whole goal of improvisation is to tell your story in the most free flowing way as possible, like this truthful, free flow of ideas. Well, the only way you can properly do that is if you've put in the homework in advance, the time to have that vocabulary built up, to have the facility built up, to actually play the things that you learned and that you're also hearing and feeling. So it's a balance of like putting together what's in your head and what you can physically do with also like what's going on in here and what you're feeling. So, you got to put in the work to be able to do that on a moment's notice.
Yeah. Okay. I had another question in from James. Hi, James. I think we've covered some of this, but it's an interesting. He uses the word box, so we should really talk about that.
Sure.
James says that he's seen you talk about how you transitioned from standard blues scales to more jazzy, out of the box stuff. And his question is, off the back of that, how did you then go about practicing this and choosing what worked and what didn't? So I guess the question in a nutshell is more about how do you start the practice regime of bringing that into your playing?
Yeah, well, the best way for me was, like I said, once I started writing out chord changes and just playing unaccompanied, but really, really focusing on playing those changes. Now, granted, I'm sitting alone in my room looking at a piece of paper. So there's no reason I need to be worried about impressing anybody or anything. If I got stumped when a chord would show up, I'd stop and I'd figure out some way to play something that made sense over that chord and then connect it to the next. And I took my time, but I was always practicing very intently with a purpose. It was, I'm going to learn to make it through these chords and, I'm going to connect them all together. I'm always practicing in time as if there's changes going over. If you were here and if you weren't here and I was sitting here playing guitar, I would be sitting here going, I wouldn't just be sitting here going, in no time to know, in my mind, there's always changes going by and a beat, a groove, something. And I think that's really important too for practicing is that you always kind of play in time. That helps you develop your pocket and your internal clock and all those types of things, which are also a huge part of your improvisation.
But that's a really important part of all of this that you just touched on, because one of the reasons why, I mean, I'd been kind of following what you were doing for a while, but the thing that in the end really made me want to reach out was I guess it was a clinic or something that you were doing. I think it may have been a TC Electronic sponsored video, I'm not sure, but you were talking specifically about the concept of the guitar player in essence as part of the rhythm section and the importance. I think you said something along the lines of, this is my clinic tonight. I'm going to be playing whatever I want to play, and I'm still going to end up playing more rhythm than I am going to be playing lead. Now, when you just started talking there about the concept of rhythm and pocket, so I mean, a lot of when I go back and I think about all the guys who spent so long trying to play lead before really playing rhythm, if you could talk to somebody who had spent their whole sort of development just playing lead, how would you get them to start focusing on the importance of rhythm? What would be the thing that you'd say to them to get them moving?
Well, I mean, number one, the better your time in pocket, the better your soloing is, your improvisation is. Now, excuse me, the best way to work on your time and pocket is with rhythm guitar, because that's where you learn to make things feel good and to be part of the band, part of the ensemble, part of the rhythm section. And for me, that was really, really key in finding my time and my phrasing, and learning kind of how to to find that push pull, but behind the beat, in front of the beat, swinging things, playing things straight, et cetera, et cetera. And, if you want to be a working guitar player, you're going to spend 75%, maybe 85, 90% of the night, mostly playing rhythm guitar. Even in my setting, like you said, I'm singing at least half the time. So I'm playing rhythm guitar behind my singing. If someone else is soloing, I'm playing rhythm guitar while someone else is soloing. I mean, and if you're in a band where you're not your guitar is not the focus of this entire band, most of the time that's your role, is to be a part of this band and a part of this ensemble. So I mean, it's something you can't. It's like the same thing when the joke where guys go to the gym and they skip leg day. You can't skip rhythm guitar day. It's like it's an appendage. It's a huge part of what you do playing this instrument, especially if you want to do it for a living professionally. So it was enormous for me in finding my way. So the best thing to do is join a band where you're forced to play even more rhythm guitar, even if it's terrible, and dive into it head first, not reluctantly, like the rhythm is just the break in between times that I solo. No, the rhythm is the job and the solo is the perk. You know what I mean? You have to approach it that way.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, because the other thing as well is when you start to get into the rhythm concept, you then start to talking about pulling and pushing and maneuvering, and there's often a lot of jokes about guitar players timing being awful in comparison to bass players and drummers. But actually, a good musical group is one that's moving within the beat or moving the beat around a little bit. So you're either, I mean, there's some great examples over musical history of players who are just ahead or players who are just behind, and the different feel that gives, right? How much of that comes into the sort of stuff that you do? Pretty much everything, I guess.
A lot, a lot. And that comes from, experience and knowing what's called for when. And also, what are you trying to put across? I mean, so if I'm on a gig and I'm playing, rhythm guitar, and the job is for me to play my time is going to be rock solid because it requires me to be on the beat, not ahead, not behind, but on the beat and lay it down, but if my job is to play, something swung, even in the same kind of music, in soul, something more Temptations or Curtis Mayfield, like now I'm already pulling and pushing that, moving it around. Yeah. I'll be on the beat, but then I'll play a lick that's way behind the beat, and that comes from, having a clock that you're able to do that. And it's a mix of like this internal clock. It's a mix of, being able to feel those things and technically pull them off. You get kind of used to following and kind of finding your role within a band and what makes things feel a certain way. When a drummer plays really straight, then a lot of times you're going to want to swing something over the top. If a drummer's swinging, a lot of times I may play straighter over the top because that's what creates, the movement that's going on in the band. It's like that old, Steve Jordan comment about the rock and the roll, the dotted eighth note and the straight eighth note. Well, that is, somebody swinging, somebody playing straight, rest in peace, Little Richard. But when he's playing, well, the drums are playing, doom, da, da, boom, ba, they're swinging, and Richard's playing really straight. And that's what makes those things feel that way, is that push and pull.
Okay, right. Back to the board. Let's have a look. Oh, hang on. Simon's in. Simon Williams. Hi, Simon. How are you? Greg's in as well. Greg Evans. Nice to see you virtually. Question here from Luke. Hey, Josh, do you have a favorite guitar solo and or a favorite guitarist who is your, I would imagine this is rounding up to be, who is your one musical hero? If you had to name the one, who's the one?
Oh, that's really difficult. I really would struggle with the one, Albert King and BB King were first, but Stevie Ray Vaughan was an enormous moment and influence in my life. I was 10 when Stevie passed. I know Matt and I talk about this all the time and feel very similar and have a similar, upbringing as far as that goes. He changed the game for me because number one, I was hearing him take all his influences and roll them into this big ball. And that was really enticing to me because I could tell, I'm listening to some of the things that he liked, and he's putting them into his thing and he's coming up with something new. And it's okay to really, really love Albert King and Otis Rush and like Jimi Hendrix and like Kenny Burrell, you know what I mean? And like all these guitar players. But then also when I finally saw a video of him playing was when I was completely floored because of the effort and the heart that he played with. He was giving 100,000,000%, sweating his ass off and in it so hard. And that was a big inspiration as well. So, I mean, if you had to ask me who had the biggest impact in my career or my guitar playing, probably Stevie Ray Vaughan. Is he still like my favorite guitar player of all time? I don't know, but he's the one who changed things for me dramatically. If I had to give my top 5 guitar players, it would be Stevie Ray Vaughan, Albert King, BB King, Jimi Hendrix, and Danny Gatton. Now, Danny Gatton was another huge lightning rod for me. When I found Danny Gatton, that changed everything overnight for me because there was all this new information that I had to struggle with, new technique and new harmonic information, and learning all that changed the game for me too. So I tend to think of things in that way. There's a lot of these moments that were huge moments for me in my building blocks of my career. Some of them weren't guitar players, some of them were Charlie Parker. He's equally as influential to me as Danny Gatton and Albert King and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Charlie Parker was just as important. So was Thelonious Monk. So was the way Sam Cooke sings. These things were equally important to me in developing the language and the way that I improvise. So I don't think I could pick just one, but those are some of the main ones there.
Okay, good. I hope that answered your question, Luke. I think it probably did. Okay. RF Higgins has asked a question. Josh, you play the most amazing lick on some of your versions of Crosscut Saw. This is a long question, by the way. Bear with me. When you go up to the 13th fret on the E, back to the 8th, and you hammer on and off to the 10th before going to the B string. Do you know what he's talking about? He says, can you talk us through it? You normally play it early on before the chord change to the C.
No.
No? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Something like that? I don't know.
RF, you'll have to let us know if that's the thing.
It sounds like I'm playing something like that. If I'm playing 13th fret, something like that.
Well, all I can say is, Mr. RF Higgins, first of all, if you could let us know what your first name is, that'd be brilliant. And I hope that answers your question. Dave Barlow says, I first saw Josh on a Friedman NAMM demo. How did that happen? As Josh isn't what I would have thought a Friedman style player.
Friedman NAMM demo. I don't know how that happened either because I don't know what it is.
Okay.
It might have just been me hanging out in the room and someone throws a guitar.
Having a jam. Okay,
I will say Morgan and Freeman share the same parent company, so they're in the same booth area. So sometimes I'm hanging around Morgan and Freeman's right there next to us. So maybe I was sitting around playing Freeman.
Okay, well, there you go, Dave. That sort of answers your question. Steffi's joined us. Hi, Steffi from Canada. Ian's got a question. How are you managing confinement and are you getting to jam online?
How am I managing confinement? A lot of boredom and television and letting my beard grow with little teeny bursts of inspiration every now and then. You know, a couple times a week I'll get inspired and come do some work back here in the studio. But you know, it's hard on, you know, I'm by myself. You know, I'm used to having guys come over and we're tracking and we're doing this, or, you know, I'm in the middle of producing a number of records that have all been put on hold. So it's like, you know, nobody's coming over here to work or do anything. So it's, you know, I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult.
Man, well, I got to tell you, I think your beard is looking magnificent.
Thank you. I'm proud of it. This is far and away the longest it's ever been. And I was thinking about it last night because it's getting hot here in California now. Summer's approaching, and it's annoying me a little bit. I keep trimming the mustache so it doesn't bother me when I eat. But I'm thinking I'm gonna let it go until my first gig. Whenever a gig happens, that's when I'll shave.
Okay, now quick one. I'm aware that you've got some music in the background.
Yeah.
Can you play us a little something? But first of all, can you just set it up and let us know what it is?
Sure.
That you've got? Is it a new track? Is it an old track? What have you got there?
Well, I don't know. Let's see what people want. I can either play one of my tunes from Inception, the instrumental record. So I could play Fulfillment or Penance or Canyon, or I could just play some blues and play whatever.
Okay. Well,
people prefer.
okay. Well, we've got a minimum 20-second delay on the Facebook, so let's see what people come back with. In the meantime, I'll just do a quick shout out. Oh, Danny's got a question for you. Oh, it turns out a long one. Hey, Josh, saw your gig at Worthing Pier with Ariel. It was incredible. I know you aren't a YouTuber and you're busy doing your own records and playing, but would love to see you process on being a producer. I don't think it actually is a question. It's just saying you're doing great work. So
Thanks.
There you are. Thanks, Danny. Gary's watching. Hi, Gary. Hey, James. Jim Dawson's in the house. Stand by your beds. And RF Higgins' name is Robbie. So we got to the bottom of that mystery. Hey, and Bugsy's watching. Hey, Bugsy. Good to see you, my old friend. Let's have a look. Anybody coming in? Johannes has said, Johnny says, hey, Josh, are you giving Skype lessons these days?
I haven't been, even though I'm getting inundated with requests during the quarantine. The honest truth of it is I don't love giving Skype lessons. But it may be a necessity here shortly.
So basically, Johnny, the answer to that is watch this space.
Yeah, I'm thinking about in June opening it up to some Skype lessons if possible.
Well, I hope that helped you out, Johnny. In the meantime, Bintang, hi from Indonesia. Hopefully I'll get to your question in a bit. The common consensus, Rupert has come in and said, play Where's My Baby? That thing slinks.
All right, I don't have a backing track for that one. But
well, to be honest with you, I've got to tell you that the main consensus is the blues.
All right, let me play some blues.
Okay. Who else we got here?
Here's a shuffle.
Okay, cool. Wow. Okay. Comments coming in. There's a lot of people out there think they need to do some practice.
Oh, come on.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for that. It's
Nice to play. Like, it's, this is the most I've gone without like playing for real. I mean, it's really weird.
Yeah. Well, it is weird, but the thing is as well, what happens is when you get in the zone, what's happening is you're talking about the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing, which is, it's not just about what you play, it's the attitude with which you play it.
Yeah. Well, the goal is always to shut off everything.
Yeah.
And, the reason we work on all of this stuff, the reason I want to know as much as I can, and I want to be able to do as much as I can with my hands, and the reason I want to have all this ability and tone and all that is so that when it comes time to do that, even in this clinical setting of, sitting by myself with a backing track, staring at a computer, screen, that I can shut it off and play, because this is what I love, is to play and just not think and play, improvise. That's what I live for. So it's nice, that I'm missing that a lot these days.
Yeah. And in the reality of it is there's really no clue as to how that's going to change anytime soon. So it's a bit of a mystery for us all at the moment.
No, for the most part, I'm sure the rest of this year will be mostly studio things. I'm doing tracks here. I think some of the production work that I'm in the middle of will get back to normal a little bit. People will start being able to come here, and I'll finish that. Like actually Eric Gales is coming here next week, and him and me and Joe Bonamassa will be writing together for a few days, because we're getting ready to start Joe and I are producing Eric's next record. So we're getting, and that's moving ahead. We're going to work, we may all have masks on, but we're going to do it,
Yeah. Well, we're still planning for guitar breaks later in the year. We're looking at an autumn date at the moment. For those of you who are on the chat over here, on my iPad over here, for those of you who've signed up and those of you who are booked into that, we're still planning for the autumn. So hopefully we'll be able to get some of this crazy guitar playing under your fingers. In the meantime, I
was really looking forward to coming for guitar breaks.
Well, don't worry. Whatever happens, we'll make it happen.
Oh yeah. Plus, I'm really hoping that the UK tour happens.
Yeah.
We purposely made the UK tour for this year late in the year instead of early, so that there'd be a little more time. But now it's like, if it doesn't happen, then it'll end up being 2 years between UK tours. So it's like I'm hoping that this October tour will still take place.
Yeah. Okay, couple of quick things. How are we doing for time? Oh yeah, okay, cool. We're doing well. Bintang from Indonesia, he's asking you a technical question.
Sure.
He says, I wanted to know the first steps you learned to hybrid picking. Any tips and or tricks?
Yeah. So when we just mentioned Danny Gatton earlier, that was the beginning of hybrid picking for me. Before then, it was either all pick or all fingers, one or the other, and that was it. So if I was playing Albert King, I was going to play with my fingers. Most of the time, I was going to play with the pick, and I was going to anchor my hand down on the pick guard and play like this, you know. Then someone gave me this tape with Danny Gatton on it, and overnight, everything changed. And it became very clear to me that these things he was playing, there was absolutely no possible way I could flat pick this stuff. Just not possible. So the very first lick absolutely was the way he played this double stop, which is very much like the Ray Charles song, What I Say, which is, but he's playing it. And that was the first one, because it's a little tricky with the rhythm. It restarts itself as and it's like a bounce to it, which is a banjo player technique, because that's what he was. He was a banjo player used to playing that way. And it was an incredible challenge to figure out how to play this. But once I did, it was like the floodgates open. And I used to sit at home on the couch and practice playing that and other hybrid things. And I found what I was falling into a lot was a pattern of 2 down strokes with my pick and then a middle finger stroke. So I was playing a lot of triplets like this. And then I would break out like that. But it wasn't ever a set thing, because everybody hybrid picks in their own way. I tend to use my fingers when it feels natural to me. You will do it in the ways it feels natural to you. Now, normally I won't use my fourth finger until I'm playing chords. So unless I need 3 notes at the same time, it's usually only the middle finger. And that was all middle finger and pick. But if I start playing double stuff, then I'm using these 2 fingers as well. So it just depends on what's going on. But it changed the game for me. It changed everything I played. So, I mean, obviously, you just heard me play that tune. Half the time I'm playing hybrid picked, you know, even if I'm just playing straight blues. It comes and goes. It's a natural part of my playing now. So you got to kind of find how it works for you. But I found that little triplet, just that, and trying to break out of it into other licks kind of opened my world. And then I started realizing I was doing it when I played rhythm guitar. Like when I'm playing on a shuffle, a lot of times, instead of just playing, I was stabbing it all by playing it hybrid. And it's very much more like an organ player or a piano player would play, because you're striking all the notes at the same time. And that started to give me new nuance to play in my rhythm guitar as well. So hybrid picking, yeah, it was a big game changer for me. And now it's, you know, it's second nature. It's just a natural thing. That's the way I play guitar. But yeah, it was absolutely inspired by Danny Gatton, 100%.
Yeah, because there's that sort of, it almost feels like there's a change in style the minute you start to bring those things in. It's like a third element to the army. You know, you've got the blues part, then you've got the jazz part, and then it also brings in the country. So well,
I felt like that was when I started to find my voice, my personal thing. Was when I started to mix my love of blues and the history that I've done, you know, the homework that I put in, loving blues and respecting it, mixed with love for jazz and starting to bring in some of those sensibilities and harmonic ideas. And then once I started to mix that with this new technique that I was enjoying, it was when I felt like, oh, this is all coming into something different that maybe is my own thing now. And that's really was when I felt like I started to find my voice.
Great. Okay. All right. Right. I'm going to have to run you through some. I've got some questions from people who emailed in and messaged earlier on. So I want to run through a couple of these.
All
We've
right.
covered a few of them, but there's a couple that I think are super interesting.
Cool.
This one from Noddy. I don't know if Noddy's watching, but Noddy says, a few months ago, you announced on social media that you were looking for musicians to join you as part of your long-term band. And who would be your ultimate choices for a bass player and a drummer to form the Josh Smith trio, living or dead?
Well, my ultimate choices would be my brothers, Lamar Carter on drums and Calvin Turner or Travis Carlton on bass. These are my best friends, my brothers, but they're incredibly talented, hardworking musicians who are always busy and trying to make a living for their families, you know. And unfortunately, the Josh Smith experience does not afford me the luxury of paying guys what they're worth yet, you know. So you know what he's asking about is, it was actually probably more than a year ago now that I put out a call. You know, I've done it a few times, looking for younger cats to maybe mold into something. It's, if Matt is still watching, I know we share this frustration. It's my absolute main frustration
Right.
in this business, is that I play with unbelievably great musicians all the time, especially being here in LA, but I never play with the same musicians all the time. I'm on the road constantly using bands based in the areas I'm going to, or I'm bringing different guys, whoever's available, whoever will be willing to go for the budget that I have for this particular tour or that tour. And that grows old very quickly. So
Yeah.
my biggest dream and frustration is to get out of that stage eventually and to play with some friends, some guys who really want to be there and be with me maybe for an extended period of time and build something special that's not just, oh, these are the tunes that I sent these guys, they're the only ones they know, that's what we're going to play. You know, I'm always thinking of how to make the show happen, as opposed to how do I make the show the best it can be because I have a stable band or a stable. That's the dream, you know, is to play with like-minded individuals I want to be around and have
Yeah.
everybody at least be making enough money to be smiling and be happy to be there.
Yeah. Okay, great. And Andy has written in, he's asked a couple of questions. I'm only going to go with one. What advice can you give to help break down the barrier of being able to confidently sing and play? It's something that he really wants to do, but it's taking the first leap and the fear factor.
Yeah, the first leap is the is the hardest one. You know, absolutely, that first step is the toughest. So the first time I sang a song live, I was 14 years old, playing with three 40-year-old musicians, keyboardist, bass player, and drummer. They thought it was hysterical that I was going to attempt to sing a song. It was a Stevie Ray Vaughan song, actually. It was called Love Struck Baby. That was the first song I ever sang live and in person. And I was so nervous, but I had worked forever in my room practicing singing and playing it at the same time by myself. I'm certain I kept my eyes closed the whole time, scared of what it looked like out in the audience while I was singing, that what people thought it was a joke or something, because my voice hadn't even changed yet. You know, I had a high pitched voice. I was a really little kid. But I knew even then that if I didn't start, there was going to be a problem, because I saw all these guitar players who didn't sing at all. And I knew if I wanted to be the front guy, which at the time that was what I cared about, that I needed to try to sing. And I knew that, you know, yeah, some people are blessed with you know, a gift. Maybe I didn't have that, but I knew I was willing to work at it, and I'm still working very hard at it. Now, as far as playing and singing at the same time, the best thing to do is to get very comfortable with the part and not push yourself to play something, you know, out of the comfort level. You can simplify things, you know. So I push myself pretty hard because I'm in a trio setting to not let things drop. So I maybe play more than I even need to sometimes when I'm singing, because I like the challenge of not changing the part. Maybe it's a part that I recorded on the record, so I want it to be there. And it's more difficult to play it and sing it at the same time, but I'm going to figure out a way to do it. That doesn't have to be the approach. The approach should be to play something that doesn't let the groove sag. You want to still fulfill your role. And if you're in a trio, it's an important role. You can't just drop out and have singing with bass and drums all the time, you know? So it could be as simple as percussively making sure there's something in between. If you look at what Stevie did, like on Pride and Joy, but he would sing, well, I heard about you wouldn't even hear the notes. He'd just be playing this percussive motion, and every time he would take a breath, the notes would come back. You know, because maybe that was early on for him too. Maybe he was finding his way to play and sing at the same time. But it's important to keep something together. Now, as far as getting over the fear of it, unfortunately, the only answer to this is the only way is to do it. You got to just make yourself do it. You know, go to an open jam where it doesn't matter. You know, you don't have, you're not owing anybody anything at an open jam. They didn't pay to come see you play and aren't going to be disappointed if, you know, you can't play and sing great at the same time. So, you know, find that one song you're really comfortable with that's just a shuffle, so you can call it out to whoever you're on stage with. Say, hey, play me a shuffle in A, and sing Tore Down or Key to the Highway or whatever. And just find that one thing you're comfortable with and just do it a few times. You know, there's no way around that. You got to just get on stage and do it.
Yeah, well, I hope that's great advice. Unfortunately, it is completely true. The one way to get over it is to just get on and do it. And but there's loads of open mic nights, or there was. Hopefully there will be again in the future. You know, and there's loads of opportunities to go and do that and just get your confidence up a little bit. So, oh, nice message from Carol Thompson. She's just said to you, nobody can afford to pay you what you are worth. Your musicianship is priceless.
Well,
so that's a very nice message, Carol. Thank you for that. Oh, look, Andy G. Jones has just joined us. That's fantastic. Hi, Andy. How are you? Okay, right. I'm aware that we're getting to the end of our time. But I want to put you through the quick fire round, the 10 questions with only one answer to each one. Okay. Some of them are simple, some of them not so much. Okay, so you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, cool. If you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh, Albert King, Live Wire Blues Power.
Okay, Billy Gibbons or Jeff Beck?
Oh, Jesus. Don't hate me, but I'm going to say Billy Gibbons. I love Jeff Beck. I love Jeff Beck, but I'm not that guy who just is obsessed with Jeff Beck. So
I shouldn't cheer that, but I'm a big Gibbons fan. So, okay, boxing or wrestling?
Oh, boxing, yeah.
Okay, you're going to form a rock tribute band. Would it be Zeppelin, AC/DC, or Guns N' Roses?
As much as I love AC/DC, it would be Zeppelin.
Okay. Have you ever milked anything?
No.
Okay. William Shatner or Patrick Stewart?
Oh, geez. William Shatner. Definitely. I love Patrick Stewart, but when it comes to Star Trek, William Shatner.
Okay. What's your favorite day of the week and why?
I don't even know what day it is today.
That's your favorite day. Pasta or burger?
Oh, hamburger. And I love pasta, but man, I'm a meat and potatoes guy first and foremost.
Okay. You always take one thing on tour with you. It's not musical gear. What is it?
Some form of video game thing to keep me sane.
Okay. And finally, what's one thing we don't know about you that we really should?
Huh. I don't know that one. I don't know. Maybe how much I don't know. Maybe how much I love sports or you know, I don't know. That's a tough
one. So who's your favorite team?
Oh, the Yankees are my favorite team in all of sports.
Okay.
In baseball, it's the Yankees. In basketball, it's the Clippers. Football, it's the Dolphins. I grew up in South Florida. Yeah, I just love sports.
All right. Josh, thank you very much indeed. It's been a real pleasure. The guys look like they've really enjoyed it.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, everybody's just, oh, hang on, one more question right at the end from an awesome guitar player called Alan Salmon. He asks, does Josh Smith like Marmite?
I've never tried it.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to buy you a jar of Marmite. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to stick it in the post. And then in a couple of weeks' time, we'll find out whether you like it or not. I'm going to say a massive thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the Facebook Live now. And so if you want to say goodbye to everybody, I just want to say a massive thanks to everybody who got involved this evening. It was really great that you wanted to be involved.
From the UK last time.
Oh, man, I love those. Those are my favorites. Oh, and just to let everybody know that the next one of these lockdown live interviews is going to be with Chris Buck. So hoping to do Chris towards the middle end of next week. So
he's a great player and a very nice young man. He always comes to see me play when I'm in the UK. He's very nice, young dude.
He's an awesome player. He's been to a couple of the Guitar Breaks things, and he's just got the thing. You know, whatever the thing is, that's the thing.
I can always just, when I listen to guitar players, the one thing, and just musicians in general, I like to say that, like, when I can hear instantly if a guy has spent the time at the foot of his bed. If you put in the time sitting on the edge of your bed, I know right away when someone's put in the time, when they haven't put in the time. I know he has.
Oh, yeah, he has. Okay, Josh, we're going to sign off from Facebook now. So just want to say goodbye to everybody on Facebook. It's been awesome. Thank you very much.